Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Man Cave Mondays. Dan here with you, kicking off October. I'm really excited about our conversation tonight because we are talking about our top favorite spooky, scary horror movies. This whole month, we're going to be trying to dive into some interesting conversations about, well, stuff involving the holiday. It is one of my favorite holidays, and I know our panel is kind of mixed on our experiences with scary movies, which is going to make for a really interesting conversation because we are already debating what is and is not considered a scary movie or a horror movie or whatever before we started the episode. So this is going to be fun. I know based on what we've had in conversations in the past, Joe's with us tonight. Joe, you love Halloween, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, it's like one of your favorites. You got your tree decorated as
I
Halloween.
do.
I'm jealous of that. I that gives me motivation to get a tree up early. And my wife would be totally okay with that because then we just transition the lights over to Christmas. I'm the guy that's like, and I don't want to see anything Christmas until Thanksgiving is over. Like, that's me. Although, to be fair, this year maybe I'll make an exception on that because this year kind of sucks. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes in the Goulson household. But we also got Alberto with us tonight. Alberto, how you doing, sir?
Doing. Hungry, but I'm alive.
You're hungry?
Yes, sir. Always.
Yeah, I hear that, dude. And then last but not least, this week we've got Bobby. Howdy, sir. Slideshow. Christian can't be here with us, and I refuse to let my brother back. So we're it's just going to be the four of us tonight, and that is all right. Alberto, did you have a noodle hanging out of your mouth? What was that?
That was brains.
Great,
Yes, those
Halloween
were brains.
themed. That's exactly right. We're
Those were
chowing
snakes
down
and worms.
a little bit of Hannibal Lecter going on here. Or something.
Exactly.
I don't know.
Inspired.
Yeah. No news tonight because I wanted to dive right into the conversation because this is going to be kind of an interesting back and forth. We might, we'll see if we'll debate any of these pieces or not. I tried to throw what I thought was a pretty simple request out there to all the rest of the panel before this show and said top 5 like horror movies. That could mean to some degree open to interpretation a little bit, like is it your top 5 scariest movies or just your favorite ones to enjoy? Like, is it the scariest? Is it like the most artistic? Whatever. Top 5 horror movies. The term horror movie apparently was up for debate in and of itself. So this is going to be an interesting one. This is going to be a real interesting one. Show of hands or eye or whatever. Are you a horror movie fan or not?
Yes.
Bobby?
Nope.
No, Bobby is not.
No.
Okay.
No.
And I know Christian is not
appreciate
either. And I'm kind of bummed that he can't be here tonight because he would have made some interesting choices, I think, too. Maybe we can come back around to him on next week's show. But this is going to be interesting. What would you classify to be officially a horror movie, though? I think we need to clarify that. And then when we're going through our list, we can see whether or not someone's pick actually fits that definition.
For me, it's something that has suspense and can evoke fear, nightmares, but also something that could be real.
Something that could be real.
Yeah.
So it has to be plausible or real?
Has to be plausible. That could be scary too.
So like Friday the 13th or Freddy Krueger going into your dreams. Those aren't horror movies.
No, those are. I said,
How could that be real? That can't be real.
No. Maybe
Freddy going into your dreams.
I'm trying to break you.
Okay.
Back up.
Just
Clarify.
let me
Clarify,
Joe.
Clarify.
So we're already off to a bad start here. This is
No, we're challenging you. We're just making
that's the
sure.
whole
I
reason
know
we're
where you're
here.
going at, Joe. I'm just trying to help you out. So
okay.
A horror movie is anything that can evoke fear. There we go.
Okay.
That can
So
invoke fear. Okay.
so but that could be okay. So is that like the movie as a whole,
Yeah.
or just moments in the movie?
Both. Why not?
Okay, so like,
Why is this so hard to
dude,
discuss?
Spider-Man 2, when Dr. Octavius' arms come out and starts terrorizing that entire room, pretty crazy horror moment. Definitely a Sam Raimi moment, right? That doesn't make it a horror movie.
No. Yeah.
Am I wrong here, guys? Like, where am I?
Is Army of Darkness a horror movie?
Army of Darkness is not a horror movie.
Is
Evil
Joe,
Dead.
what do you
technically
think?
is. Evil
'Cause
Dead.
That's a sequel to Evil Dead, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Evil Dead is Evil Dead a horror movie?
Yes.
But wait,
But
okay,
this-
so then in the same vein, would you consider Bride of Chucky a horror movie, despite that probably being one of the funniest ones in the entire series?
I have not seen Bride of Chucky, so I would not be able to answer that one way or the other.
Because it's like if you look it up online, it's a horror comedy.
Yeah,
And-
see, then we start splitting hairs on like horror
Yeah.
comedy, and is it more comedy? Is it more horror?
Mhm.
It does get kind of muddy there. Okay, and what is the difference between a horror movie versus a like thriller or suspense movie?
Thriller, I have a bad association with my mom watching like a movie off of Lifetime Movie Network every weekend growing up.
Oh,
So her taste of thrillers were like, oh, the killer's gonna get him or get her. And I'm just like, yeah, it's just like last weekend and the weekend before. It's the same guy, it's just a different outfit. That's it.
Is it the body count? Is it a
Hmm,
high body
maybe.
count that considered as it a horror? I mean, or is that a slasher film, a type
Yeah.
of genre within horror? Because you can say Freddy Krueger. I mean, we can definitely agree if we say Friday the 13th, Freddy Krueger, Saw. Those are Pet Cemetery. Thank you,
Pet
Alec.
Cemetery. Alec in the chat is throwing out Pet Cemetery.
Puppet
Is Pet
Master.
Cemetery a horror movie?
Yes.
Yes, definitely.
Dawn of the Dead.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So, I mean, let's find some common
Absolutely.
ground that we can all say is a horror film. I think that's where we need to, let's just start listing movies. So, Pet Cemetery, Puppet Master. Anyone see that?
Yes.
Is that a horror movie?
Yes.
Yeah.
Chucky, Child's Play,
Yeah.
Yes.
Children of the Corn.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're all in agreement. Most of those movies are going into the horror film. When you
Okay.
get to my
Then
pick,
what about
The
Sixth
Frightener.
Sense? The Sixth Sense.
So again,
Oh, so that's like the
Signs.
thriller.
so what is that? I think that's a good. Is that a horror movie where there's a high suspense? It has to deal with death and the seeing dead people,
Right.
or is it a thriller?
So when I was putting this concept together for a discussion, the way that I was kind of defining horror movie in my mind was it was written and created with the expressed intention of entertaining its audience through causing or invoking fear and horror in the audience member to some degree. Like that was its purpose. Whether it does it effectively or not, whole nother story, right? Troll 2, maybe not the greatest job actually doing that, but it's still technically a horror movie because that was the purpose of it, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess The Sixth Sense would be debatable. Is that the purpose of it? Maybe you're going in initially thinking it is, and then by the end of the movie, you're like, wow, that actually wasn't the point of the movie. And then you watch it again, and now it's not a horror movie anymore.
I see dead people.
So
Right. Joe, what do you think?
I would say it is because I remember watching it and being freaked out when that girl was like throwing up randomly, and you're like, I'm out.
Right. Right. First time you watch it, absolutely. But the second time you watch it through, you realize because of the way that the movie played out, why she's throwing up.
Mhm.
But
And it's not it doesn't have anything to do with horror at all. It has everything to do with understanding why she died and trying to help the family out after. Like, I feel like, I don't know, like there's an aspect of a horror movie where it's always there to invoke horror. And I feel like The Sixth Sense, like M. Night Shyamalan's genius in that movie is that maybe you go in initially thinking this is a scary movie, and it has that, but by the end of it, there's this plot twist at the end that gives you a whole new context to where it's not a horror movie anymore because of that. Does that make sense?
He's going into his Last Jedi theory, friends.
Oh, stop it.
No. I'm just giving you a slack, but
I know.
What was his original intention to cause fear within the audience, to going back to your definition?
The first time they're watching it. Yeah.
So technically it is
Bobby,
a
are
horror
you taking
film.
notes?
I am.
Bobby's taking notes.
I am taking notes.
Well, Alex is jumping in on the conversation some more. He says, to Joe's point, it can happen with The Sixth Sense, seeing dead people, etc. It's a theory that children's imaginary friends are actually ghosts. Ooh. That's getting real world there. Ooh.
Yeah.
So even something that isn't real could be real. I see where you're going there. I see where you're going. What is then, before we dive into our lists for each of us here, what has been the scariest movie that you yourself have ever watched? Maybe you've never watched it since, and that's totally okay. But what's the scariest movie that you have watched? Like, you walked out of it, maybe you couldn't even get all the way through it, but you're just like, that was troubling.
Shouldn't that be on our list?
It should be, unless you were taking the
I don't know, because
the definition of the movie being top 5 horror movies didn't necessarily mean the scariest.
I was about
Your
to say
top
that
5 could mean just your favorite, and it doesn't have to be your favorite because it's so scary. You know,
I was going to say that like top 5 that I picked were definitely ones that are my favorite, ones that I revisit probably 2, 3, 5, 7 times. But one of the scariest ones was one that my girlfriend was talking to me about. I was asking her for some ideas for the list, and she kept bringing up Hereditary. And the more I started thinking about the movie and like started thinking about it, I'm like, there's a lot of scary things in it. I haven't seen it since. But it's a very unsettling movie that I don't know if I have really the stomach to watch again, because there's just some themes in it that are really scary. Is it my favorite though? No, it's not top 5 favorite, but that's probably the scariest.
If y'all are listening too, make sure you allow Facebook to use your name. Go to the whole like link that we've got in the description, but let us know what your scariest movie watching experience is. We'll try to throw it out in the chat too. Joe, what about you?
Probably Paranormal. You guys
Paranormal Activity?
Yeah, Paranormal Activity.
The first one, like they like milked that one for all it's worth.
The first one.
The first one, yes.
I had no desire to watch anything else.
After that, you're like, nope, I'm done. Nope, that's enough for me.
And just once again, the whole demonic thing and set in a spiritual realm of things. I remember watching it, and I was single when I watched it, and I was like, this is a bad idea. Because I was by myself. You don't watch scary movies by yourself. Right?
In a dark theater, right? Yeah.
So, no, that was at my house.
Dude, that's the one I was going to pick too. And not because, like, okay, so I went to it with a friend. He and I watch movies together in the theater all the time. And I went in not expecting a whole lot because I figured, this is just some dumb found footage movie. Like what was the one that kicked that whole thing off? It was the
Blair Witch.
Blair Witch, right? Yeah. That one was like groundbreaking from a marketing perspective because everybody thought it was real. Hilarious going through that whole season of movie making when no one realized not everything on the internet is true. Imagine that. But no, so I went in to see this movie, and the whole time I can't stop laughing because it was just the slowest, dumbest, most boring movie I had ever gone to that was given the label of horror movie.
Which movie?
Paranormal Activity. Until the last 15 minutes. And then they cranked the heat up so fast. I was like, what the fuck did I just watch? And I'm like, literally paranoid the entire ride home, and I couldn't sleep because the ending of that movie, like, I was like, whoa, they really turned up the heat on that one.
They
Fast.
subverted your expectations.
Mm-hmm. It definitely subverted my expectations. It was a very, very false sense of security at the beginning. Like the whole movie starting out with like keys falling off of the counter or the chandelier swinging or like a pounding noise somewhere in the house. I'm like, that sort of crap happens every day in someone's house. Like I'm really not all that scared by this at all whatsoever.
Alex says Pet Cemetery for him.
Alex is saying Pet Cemetery.
Yeah. Question, Alex.
Which one? The old one or the new one? Because the new one I heard had mixed reviews. The old one's like a classic. That's Stephen King at his best for sure. Mm-hmm. Bobby, what about you, sir? What is your scariest?
I am not a scary movie guy, so
I know that's why I'm curious.
That's kind of like I've never been able to sit through a full solid Friday the 13th movie all the way through, or Freddy Krueger. I mean, I've sit through Puppet Master too. Sometimes, there's movies that I've sat through and I forgot their names. I just don't look for the genre. I appreciate the genre. I enjoy the sci-fi. I enjoy when I hear like Event Horizon. That is it's a sci-fi horror movie.
Definitely.
I would even also say that Alien is a horror movie. Mm-hmm. Just for the fact that by your definition, it invokes fear, and you're being preyed upon, and you're afraid getting a ugly face hugger attached to your face, and you don't want that happen to you, and
definitely
jumping out of you.
So what would be the scariest movie that you've ever seen then? You've seen, it sounds like Event Horizon and Alien.
I've seen them. Yeah. It's just, have I ever gotten through them in one sitting? No, I can't say. Yeah. Like what's because how scary they are, or because of the time thing, or because it's just not really your jam? It's just not my jam, but I appreciate it. If that makes sense. I appreciate what they're trying to do and appreciate the people that love it. But,
so you get bored?
No, I get scared, or it's just not my, it just does not hold my interest. It makes me feel, I get too invested in the characters, and then I truly get scared because I put myself in the characters. I get lost in it, and then I get too much into it. So dude, you're like the perfect audience member that they want to pay to be in the audience. Yeah. To have everybody else feed off of to experience the movie that way. Yeah. You can make some money just going to the movies and sitting in the theater being that guy. I mean, I remember, and I forgot, like 2002, I was on a date. And it's a scary group of people this girl and I just tried to just stay calm. Like, it's only a movie. It's only a movie. Mm-hmm. And just trying to breathe and just trying to go through the whole thing. But trying to be the cool guy. Just trying to be the cool guy. Trying to be chill. Just trying to be chill. Like, all right, I know all this. I mean, you don't want to be the guy who's clinging to the girlfriend because you're terrified, right? Yeah, no. No, you don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be that guy. But it's. Yeah, for me, I've never really been like super terrified going to horror movies, and a big part of that I feel is because when I was growing up, I never got into horror movies much. My parents were like, "Nope, you're not doing that," and it's like, okay. But I did get into filmmaking a ton, and so when I finally did get to the point of starting to watch scary movies, watch horror movies when I got to like high school and college and all of that, and starting to absorb some of that more,
I was looking at it always from the perspective of how the hell did they do that? Like the movie making side of it. Yeah. Like the Saw franchise, for example, right?
Yeah.
The just absurdly grotesque, awful, gross stuff in those movies makes everybody sick to their stomach. And that's the whole point of what they're going for, right? For me, I'm sitting there watching this going, how the hell did they do that? Like, I'm not thinking about, oh, this is disgusting. That's gross. I'm watching somebody's skull get cracked open or, you know, some limb get stabbed or whatever. No, I fully am aware of the fact that it's all special effects. None of it is actually real. But at the same time, I'm like, that looks pretty legit. How did they do that? Like, there's a creative side of it for me where I'm like, that's actually really fascinating that you could do that in a way that is safe and keeps the actors safe, and yet it looks very authentic and legit. Like, I love that creative side of it. So
I think a good horror movie will put you in the movie and let's, like, you know, in the back of your head, it's all fake.
Right.
But you know, but in the rules within the movie,
Paranormal Activity, what if this is, you know, well, like, that's the thing that was sticking with me the most.
Again, that too, I mean, but also too,
like that could be real.
The movie, all that, it could be real. This is science fiction. Is it science based? You know, all that always kind of in the back of your head, oh my gosh, is this a real thing? And they make it look real, even though, you know, all right, I know how they did that. But I think that's just a good film. It gets you caring about the characters and puts you in their own place. So,
alrighty. Well, should we dive into our movies?
What about
into our list?
Alberto. What's his scariest movie?
Oh, did you? I thought I gave one.
Yeah, well, for me, I probably would agree with my girlfriend on Hereditary.
Oh yeah, you did.
Yeah,
Hereditary, right?
Yeah. Looking back at it's terrible. I used to hate scary movies as a kid too. I was 2 years old, and I turned around one day on a living room TV, and I see the big old tube TV right there, Ghostface from Scream, in Spanish, because it was translated in Spanish, and there everyone is screaming, and I'm just standing there. And as I grew up, I hated horror movies. I hated it because I was just all I felt was my hairs on my back or on my arms and everything just stand up. And as I got older, I was like, "Oh, this is totally fine." I absolutely love horror movies because there's a channel on Xfinity or Comcast. They used to show horror movies for free. It's kind of like that Shudder channel.
Mm-hmm.
It's very similar to it, but they were doing 24/7 hour movies like My Bloody Valentine and Friday the 13th all day, every day. Anyway, though, yeah. So let's.
There's when I was growing up, there was a couple movies that stuck with me, and I never went back to them until I was an adult. One of them I still haven't gone back to, mainly because it just doesn't interest me. The one was the original It. Finally went back and watched that. Not even remotely scary now, but when I was a kid, that was on as like a Sunday afternoon movie in October on TV. I kid you not. I'm like, this couldn't be real, right? They let this on TV, right? So I had to do some research on it. Yep, it was officially on a Sunday afternoon airing on, I think it was ABC or CBS or something. And we came home from church. My mom was, I think my dad was working. My mom took a nap, and I was like, I'm going to watch some TV. This was on TV. And I was like, mesmerized by how freaky this clown was and terrified. And I'm like, oh, shoot, thinking my mom's going to hear me or see me or whatever. And then change the channel to something else. And then I'd be like, I need to know what that clown's up to. And then I'd go back to the movie. Right. And I kept going, like bouncing back and forth, just so enamored by the creepiness of this clown. And then the one scene in that show with like the blood just gushing out of the wall or the book or whatever, like going everywhere. I was like, okay, that's it. I'm done. No more. And I stayed away from it the rest of the day, but I'm always curious about how the rest of the movie ended, and I finally watched the original like a few years ago. So, yeah.
What's better, the original or the remake?
Oh, easy one for me. But I'll save that conversation for later, though.
I was going to say let's save that because I think there's some conflicting opinions on that.
So Alex
Already.
says, Alec on the comments saying Pet Sematary, The Conjuring 1 and 2, Fire in the Sky, Poltergeist, the original, and Poltergeist 2 is his top
Poltergeist 1 and 2. Wow.
Don't spoil those
All
for me.
right.
Those are my
He just said
Halloween
remake.
to watch list.
Oh, remake is his
Alrighty.
favorite. The remake.
Gosh, I totally forgot about that one, but that was a good one.
Which one?
Fire in the Sky.
I never saw that one.
It's about
I'm
an
gonna have to see that one. Oh, all right.
based on a true story.
Who based on a true story.
No, I'm being
Okay.
serious.
Not unlike
Really?
not unlike the Texas Chainsaw Massacre was based on a true story. Yeah. No, it wasn't. Okay.
Put me in the middle.
Inspired by true events. No, it wasn't. Okay. For real, like look into that. It really wasn't. Okay. Who wants to go first?
Nose goes.
Go, yeah. I'll go, but
I think
You
we
guys
should
are
save
gonna
yours
just-
for last, Bobby. That's what I think. That's what I think. Maybe we'll save yours, Bobby. How about Alberto? Yours is finished now, right? You just finished yours.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let's do yours then. We'll do
right.
Alberto's. All right. Here's Alberto's. Honorable mention is Shaun of the Dead. Why'd you throw that in the honorable mention category?
Great movie.
I'm curious.
great movie.
So I know we talked about it, I think earlier in the week, like what defines horror movie, and especially if horror comedies are allowed. And I was really stuck between like including this movie and Zombieland on top of it, and even like
Yeah.
goofy movies like Thanksgiving, which is pretty much just all comedy about a killer
Yeah.
turkey.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But then I really started thinking and started diving
Rubber.
deeper.
Did you ever see that movie?
Rubber with the tire,
The
yeah.
killer tire that's like possessed and running around killing people.
So it's like those movies still exist.
Also based on a true story.
Oh,
Yeah, it's totally based on a true story.
and all those are really good movies and whatnot. But I think in the spirit of horror at least, I wanted to keep the main top 5 just as close to horror as possible, and just a little bit of an honorable mention for Shaun of the Dead. But just pretend that's a slash with Zombieland also, because those two I revisit every single year.
Alright.
They're a lot of fun.
I've never seen Shaun of the Dead.
You've never seen
What?
Shaun of the Dead? Joe, that's got to be on your list for Halloween this year. You got to watch
Yeah.
Shaun of the Dead.
I struggle with British humor.
Dude.
I can see that actually.
I struggle with British.
So are you
It was-
like Shaun of the Dead, At the World's End,
Hot
Hot
Fuzz.
Fuzz? Like those
Nope,
three.
Nope.
You don't like any of them?
I've not seen any of them.
Dude. Okay,
Those are
so
really
for-
good movies.
For British humor, these are actually like I totally understand the British humor thing.
So
So you're
really
not a
being
Monty
thing.
Python fan, right, Joe?
Right.
I've never seen it.
Okay,
This is
then.
definitely not your typical British humor. Like this is more Western culture stuff. It's good. I think you would enjoy it. Yeah. Okay.
I said definitely give it a try.
Yeah, definitely give it a shot. So number 5, can I be honest? I've never seen this movie.
The Blob.
The Blob.
Okay. The Blob.
Why
is super
would
good.
you put The Blob on there? I've never seen this.
One, it is so ridiculous. The movie. I think that's what keeps me.
What is the
always
premise
watching it.
of it? Obviously, it's a blob, but please
So-
explain for the rest of us.
It's very cliche at this point, but a meteorite thing or whatever, some sort of alien creature falls onto Earth. Scientists are trying to study it and research it, and little do we know that this thing starts to absorb and starts to basically eat whatever living being for it to survive. So it starts off as this small little like putty, and it just keeps getting bigger and bigger. I'm specifically talking about the remake though. The original is still okay, but I never revisited that one after the 80s remake. Half of it is nostalgia because there is a scene where like kids are sneaking off to go to the movie theaters, and then the blob creature starts rolling in, and the kids are running away. And since I was a kid watching the movie, I can easily put myself in those shoes. And it is just so scary. Like this big, slow piece of gum creature is just slowly rolling.
Piece of gum?
Yeah, it's just this really
like a
pink putty. That's what it is. And it's just slowly just trying to get to people, and everyone's freaked out by it. And
like a gigantic ball of silly putty.
That's exactly it. And when you talk about it, it's so ridiculous. When you watch the movie, it's kind of scary because it basically disintegrates like the human flesh and bones, and it just melts them inside of its body. So again, outlandish.
Interesting. Okay.
Huge guilty pleasure.
All right. So number 4.
Yeah. So comedy aside, guilty pleasure aside, now is the real deal.
Now the real deal. Number 4 is
the remake.
The remake. This is the poster you have in here is part 1.
Yes.
Are you putting them both together, or are you saying just part 1?
I'm saying just part 1. I feel like it'd be cheating if I put the 2.
Okay.
Have you seen the second one?
Yeah.
I have not. My wife refuses to watch it with me.
Really?
I'm
going to watch the second one. To be honest with you, I felt the
too?
first one was significantly more scary.
She saw one. She's seen one, but she will not see
First
two.
one was definitely more scary. By a landslide, if you ask me.
Yes.
But
so for easy starters is that this one I think is just paced a lot better than the original.
Yeah.
That original, oh my god. That original is something. It's something to look at and to kind of revisit for fun, but to actually want to watch the original
With
version.
Tim Curry in it?
Yeah, like I love Tim Curry. But that movie has its like, it has this charm. It has this charm for sure. But this new one, watching it, while going to college and watching it in my 20s, and it still scared me. It was still like an actual suspenseful movie. And every single scene, like a lot of times, if you break down the story, it's not that scary. Like, okay, once they highlight a kid, something's going to happen to that kid. But you immediately start thinking, what is going to happen to that kid? And why is it going to happen to that kid the way it's going to happen? So...
Have you ever tried The Voice?
The Voice?
The Voice. Of
like
the clown.
TV show?
The voice of the clown?
No, the Pennywise. You ever tried
Pennywise?
Oh, no.
No.
Come here, Georgie. That thing?
Yeah.
For the remake or the
remake.
Original?
The remake.
The remake, definitely, he has like a distinct voice. The original is kind of like just Tim Curry's voice with creepy teeth. Right? Yeah. It's really all that's going on there. Like
he just showed up for work. That's it.
Yeah, he just kind of showed up and started shouting at these kids. Is basically what happened. All right, number 3.
Cabin in the Woods.
I'm really happy to see that this movie is on someone's list.
I love Cabin in the Woods. I'm glad that you like it because a lot of people I've talked to, they don't like this movie.
They don't understand this movie then.
Yeah, they walked into the movie thinking it was one thing because the marketing of it showed one thing. And when you watch it, it's really just poking fun at all the tropes while still being a serious horror movie, but it's definitely poking fun, and it's kind of like deconstructing the whole horror cliches left and right.
It is absolutely deconstructing the entire genre of horror movies across the gamut, from slashers to science fiction horror to zombie to monster, like like spooky ghost spirit, like all of that haunting stuff. At the same time, it is also making a really, really strong and powerful statement about how the real villain of the movie, the real protagonist, is us, the people who love watching horror movies and watching people go through all these horrific, terrible sufferings for our entertainment and amusement.
Yeah.
Like that, there's layers of commentary on the entire horror genre with this movie that I love. You guys know I love movies like that you can pick apart. It was made by Joss Whedon. He's kind of a D-bag now, but this was a really good movie, Alberto. I totally agree with you.
Yeah, no, I remember watching it at the movie theaters, and out of the 4 or 5 friends that I went to go see it, I was the only one that walked out. I was like, that was a really good movie. And everyone else was like, yeah, but then they did this and they did that, and they're talking about all like the commentary parts that they didn't like, and I'm just thinking, you are the villain. Then that's exactly who they're talking about.
The whole point.
This-
If you hated the way this movie ends, that's saying something about you and about us as fans of horror movies.
Bobby,
And
have
that's
you
the
seen
whole
it?
point.
What? Oh no.
Okay.
Have you seen it, Joe?
I've seen it once. A long time
Once?
ago.
All right.
Yeah.
I've seen it a few times, and each time I always love it. Absolutely love it.
There's so
But,
many Easter eggs in this movie too.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, there
so
is.
many like just awesome little nods and winks to other
And I mean-
scary horror stuff and monsters and
even like the main premise, honestly, is a huge Easter egg to my top number one pick, which I'll get to in a second.
Okay.
Like regardless.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
number two,
The Cabin in the Woods, right? Okay.
yeah.
Number one or number two? Number two.
Number two. I was just talking about this with my girlfriend on the phone. This one I picked because of how it scares you, and yes, there's still like
Quiet
jump
Place,
scares,
right?
Yeah, A Quiet Place. So the movie still does like the jump scares and still has a couple of the tropes, but I think it plays its biggest strength in it being, hence the name, quiet, consistently throughout. The way I saw it is that a lot of horror movies, they try to scare you or they try to make you feel nervous visually, and it's always about using the sight as the sense that is being triggered throughout the whole movie.
Mm-hmm.
But this movie, it's less about like what you're able to see and what you are only able to hear instead. And I talked about it in a past episode before, like in the podcast, that I felt that the sound design of the movie itself, the sound design is incredible. And I'm so grateful I got to see it in the movie theaters before movie theaters are how they are now. But
Yeah.
from the floorboards creaking, from the rustles in the cornstalk and, you know, just blowing in the air, to the really quiet crunch of the grass underneath people's toes that they really like accentuate in the movie. Just
Very
to
intentional.
emphasize, to emphasize how insanely quiet the movie is. You don't realize you're holding your breath for an hour and a half, hour and 40 minutes.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
I convinced my wife to come watch this with me. She hates scary movies. And we were like holding our breath. And someone brought their baby
Oh.
into the theater.
Oh no.
Started crying. I'm like, shut it up. It's going to kill us.
Right? I mean, it's almost like the theatrical version of playing off of what you were saying earlier, Joe, about trying to play Alien Isolation.
Mm-hmm.
That game Alien Isolation with the alien hearing your voice, and that like gives away your location.
Oh, man.
Oh, yeah. I told you guys in another episode about my really dumb experience going to see that movie, right?
No.
Oh, I told you that, didn't I?
I think I remember you mentioning it because I was talking about like the speakers, and I think you jumped in and you shared the story.
I went. So Haley and I, my wife Haley and I, we went to go see this in the theaters for a date night because it'd been forever since we'd had a chance to do that. And we were trying to make it for dinner and a movie, and we didn't get to the dinner part. So we're like, whatever, we'll just eat dinner at the theater. Went in to go see A Quiet Place, started the movie, and what food did this moron right here, me, decide to pick?
I remember.
Nachos. Opening the bag, dipping the cheese and sticking it in my mouth. Right, like I'm that guy in the theater, and I'm like, this. I am so embarrassed. Why did I pick this movie? This is the dumbest food for this movie ever. But I'm freaking starving, so I'm gonna power through this as quickly as possible. And I was terrified to eat every bite of that for multiple reasons.
I think
because of the movie or because of the people in the movie theater?
Yes.
So
Both of
that
them.
fear.
I wanted Emily Blunt to survive, and I also wanted myself to survive in both the movie and the movie theater. So
I think it would have been less of a sin if you just left the ringer on your phone instead.
yeah, probably.
Probably.
Probably. And then your number one, Alberto.
Number one, Evil Dead 2.
Sam Raimi at his best.
Yes. And yes.
Excellent
I recently
choice.
rewatched the first one, I think a month or two with my girlfriend, and there was a lot of things that I end up loving about it, but then there's also a lot of things that I started looking back, like in retrospect, and started thinking Sam Raimi really, whatever he did pretty good in the first one, I felt like he just nailed it in the second one. Not to mention that Evil Dead 2, the first half hour starts off really as a shortened version of Evil Dead 1. And it's the highlights. It's all the best, scariest
it's the
parts.
Reader's Digest version of the first movie, basically.
Yeah. So it's like you can jump straight into the second one, and you will still get to see like the big highlights of it. Go straight to Sam Raimi's whole thing, and there's still a lot of like what amazes me the most is the practical effects. It's no secret that their budget was really low. You watch it, and you know their budget's low, but the creativity that goes from Sam Raimi and the crew, from stop animation to different camera angles. And sometimes they use a comedic level of fake blood, but it's all practical effects. Nowadays, a lot of stuff is about creatures and it's about aliens and explosions.
The remake of Evil Dead.
Oh, they upped, like, if there was a dial for blood, it just went
straight up insane levels of just
gore and everything.
It's ridiculous. It's very disturbing. But Joe, you recently, I think, watched the Evil Dead movies, right? Did you watch all of them or just like the first one or what?
I started with the first one and couldn't make it through it. So I stopped it.
Make it through the first one?
It is a slow burn. Honestly, it really is. It aged like a horse. Just
And then we started the second one, and I rented this movie, so I paid money for it. And I was like, yeah, I can't do it. I just can't do it. So,
even the second one?
Even the second one.
Oh.
But what about the third movie?
I stopped that second one.
Dude, Army of Darkness is a radically different movie. It's not even the same genre.
Yeah.
It's like completely different.
It's like Monty Python and Evil Dead just decided to have a little affair and have this child. And then they're like, oh, it's Army of Darkness. I'm like, okay, I guess.
Right. It is the most
which is one of
random sequel of any movie. Like it has very, very little to do with the tone and the concept of the first two at all. So you will actually probably enjoy the third one.
Me?
You will probably enjoy it. If you didn't like the other two, you'll probably enjoy the third one because most people it's kind of flipped.
Okay.
So. Yeah, because your nickname comes from "This is my boomstick."
Yeah,
you need to watch the third one, dude.
Yeah,
I was watch the third one to earn your nickname.
I was like, yeah, I'll check it out, and then both Sherry and I were like, no.
All right, who wants to have a group watching party? I'll get this.
We should definitely do and we all said Joe's name should be Boomstick because his spiritual gift is first person shooters.
It is,
and that just felt like the perfect name for that person because you can't stop him when he's got his boomstick. So
I was the one that gave him that name, by the way. So
thank you.
Love it. Bobby, you want to go next?
Sure.
All right.
Everyone prepare to get
kicked
off.
Get your keyboards ready.
Bobby.
No, Bobby, you're okay because
what?
I almost did the same thing.
No.
And I was like, are we going to talk about Halloween movies or horror movies? Because there's a difference.
There is a difference.
There's
a big difference.
I was about to put another movie from the director of Nightmare Before Christmas, Coraline, but I decided on Shaun of the Dead instead still because a little more horror centric, but I'm already loving it. This variety.
Would you consider, so before we dive into each of these individually, for those that are listening on the podcast, let's just fire away on these rapid fire, and then we'll dive into them, Bobby. Honorable mention is Tim Burton's Nightmare Before Christmas. Number 5,
Monsters Incorporated.
Number 4,
Beetlejuice.
Number 3,
Gremlins 2, The New Batch.
Number 2,
The Addams Family.
And number 1,
the original Ghostbusters.
Okay. Would either of you consider any of these to really be horror movies?
No.
Half of them, yes.
No.
Wait a minute.
Half.
Alberto.
I would consider half.
What
Half
do
of
you
them.
consider in this list to be horror movies?
I would consider Beetlejuice for sure a horror movie.
No.
I honestly would,
No.
because I think a lot of times horror movies get a rap that if it's not rated R or if it's not like a recent PG-13, it's just not a horror movie. Beetlejuice has kind of like this like charm to it, the same way that Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, where they're not a horror movie, but I think if I was a kid, I would definitely see it as a horror movie.
Right.
It's another Tim Burton movie, by the way.
I love Tim Burton.
I
seen Beetlejuice as a kid. Loved it. Was not scared of it.
Really?
No.
I was scared as soon as
Was Beetlejuice created with the intent to scare anybody in the audience legitimately?
Yes, I think.
No.
Part yes, part no.
No. The core
It's-
of it was all about humor and comedy amidst
about
such a
Batman.
dark theme. Like that's kind of Tim Burton's deal. Like it's comedy and dark, depressing, morbid stuff. Like that's kind of his thing, I think. I would not consider Beetlejuice a horror movie. Those of you watching, let us know what you think. Is Beetlejuice a horror movie or not? What do you think? What else do you consider to be a horror movie on this list,
me.
Alberto? Yeah, the other half. What else is a horror movie?
I honestly would consider also Nightmare Before Christmas, because when I saw it, I was creeped out from Lock, Shock, and Barrel, Oogie Boogie. Like, listen, I'm
Alberto.
just telling you, when I was a kid, I was
What
a
is going-
scaredy cat. I was a scaredy cat of everything.
Thanks,
I'm
Al.
telling you.
I appreciate it.
Joe, please chime in here. You're like,
Oh man, listen, Dan. You saw my list before. You know I got some solid taste at least now at the age of
I know.
my
Oh,
mid-20s.
believe me, I get it. Your taste is very compelling in a lot of ways.
My biggest struggle with Nightmare Before Christmas is choosing if it's a Halloween movie or a Christmas movie.
Yes.
Oh yeah,
It's both.
every year.
It's both.
But not
It is
ever.
both a Christmas movie and a Halloween movie, but not a horror movie.
I have small children, 5, 6. She turns 5 in a week. I mean, she turns 6 in a week. So 6, 8, 10, 12. And we watch this movie as a family.
Yeah.
They're
It's a
not
family movie.
They're not like, nope, we're
A
out.
horror movie. Can a horror movie be a musical? Can you make a musical into a horror movie?
Oh yes.
I feel like there was
Little
one.
Shop of Horrors.
Yeah, I was like, I know there was
Little
one.
shop.
Little
Little
Shop
Shop of
of
Horrors. Little shop. Oh yeah.
I don't know that I'd say that's a horror movie. I don't know that I consider.
I'm gonna
it.
take
I
that
would
up with the
say
audience.
It is a monster / I don't know, monster musical. Like there's horror elements to it. Don't get me wrong, but I
It is
don't
a musical.
say horror movie.
Bobby, I was,
Is it-
wait,
is it
What's
safe to say
the
this is like a
Todd
top-
Sweeney? How about
Sweeney
Todd?
Todd. Sweeney Todd is the one thing in my mind that like that's the closest I can think of. That would be a horror / musical, but even that, like that's another Tim Burton one where I'm like, okay, is Tim Burton a horror guy? Not really. He's a dark themed, very unique style. He's not a horror guy.
And then
Sam
Dan,
Raimi
this is-
definitely can be a horror guy. Tim Burton, I have yet to see a true horror movie from Tim Burton.
This is also where that
Frankenweenie.
conversation for like the last like 5 days have been finding that fine line of like horror and spooky. So
that's the reason why I clarified horror or Halloween movies.
Right. There's a big difference. Big difference.
well Bobby was also upfront. He's like,
Ernest
"Listen,
Scared Stupid. Definitely
Oh.
a Halloween movie, not a horror movie.
would you consider Scooby-Doo,
No.
Zombie Island movie,
No.
a horror movie?
No.
That was a scary movie back then.
No.
Are you kidding? When I
Dude,
was a kid, how were you
What?
guys not scared of that movie as a kid? Pop that VHS in at the age of like 5 or
Like,
6, and those
so are we
realistic
trying to
drawings.
create a subcategory here called children's horror movies?
This is it.
Is that what we're going for?
Oh
man.
Here.
All right,
No.
I'm gonna pop in here. So Ghostbusters was the first movie so my dad, my dad passed away in St. Patrick's Day. My dad passed away. And one of the first movies he took me to was Ghostbusters. And I was scared so much we had to leave the movie theater, but I kept coming back to it. And every time I watched it, I was a little less scared every time, but there was always a part of me that was always still scared about it. Just the effects, the idea of ghosts haunting you and getting you. That's why it's in my top 5. I mean,
okay.
Are these? Look, you can probably say these are all Halloween movies. I'm not a horror movie. I'm up front with you. I was up front with you guys.
Yeah,
but,
no, and I appreciate that, Bobby. If this was for me a list of top favorite movies to watch during the Halloween season,
we would have a lot of the
absolutely be in my list for sure.
So, and by the way, this list was inspired by some commercial I saw on like FX about Halloween spectacular, 30 days of
movie marathon.
Yeah. So
That's
I will
awesome.
admit that was kind of like our whole, once I saw that and our conversation got going, it was just fun from there.
Well, yeah.
But yeah, the Ghostbusters has a special place in my heart because when I was a kid, I was scared of it for a little bit.
Really?
And it remains one of my favorite movies to this day. And I cannot wait until I can show my son it, and we're going to enjoy these movies. So, and as an adult, I enjoy the adult humor in it too. So,
yeah. So let's work through these here a little bit more. We've maybe broken down Beetlejuice a little bit and Night Before Christmas, but Joe, you wanted to say something quick?
Of your list, I would say Ghostbusters is the closest thing to a horror movie.
That was going to be the third movie from his list. That was the last one from the half that I felt fitted.
Right. Like Gremlins 1, I would say probably would
that
be
movie was adorable.
Was closer to a horror movie. Gremlins 2
adorable.
Gremlins 2 is another example though of where
it was more of a comedy.
Right. So here's the funny thing, Joe. Like the difference between Army of Darkness and the Evil Dead movies is very much like the difference between Gremlins and Gremlins 2. They took a radically different tone with the second movie. So,
merchandising.
Right.
That's true.
Exactly. So number 5 here, you have Monsters Inc.
The elephant in the room. How has no one mentioned this already? Bobby, please. Monsters Inc. Top 5 horror movies.
Hey, the whole idea was to go into a kid's room and scare them for their power. Come on.
I can see. Yeah, that is true.
All right. Having a little kid watch this? Oh, yeah. I don't want to. I could have
put the little kids for sure. It's freaky. Like my daughter, the first time she watched it, she was definitely clinging to me that opening sequence when it started out as a straight horror spooky kid movie. And then the guy trips and lands on a bunch of tacks and starts rubbing his butt along the carpet, screaming in terror because he's terrified. And then she's like, what is this movie? And starts laughing at the guy. So I wouldn't consider that a horror movie personally, but okay.
Try telling that to Lily, Dan.
Try telling that to Lily. She thinks it's a scary movie. She does. So
Beetlejuice growing up, same vein as Ghostbusters.
Love Beetlejuice.
I think
love Beetlejuice.
Again, scary. The idea of death scares me.
Mm-hmm.
Scared me, whatever. Just the whole thing of some guy say his name 3 times and he'll show up and take over.
Say it again.
But
Bloody Mary.
Bloody Mary. Bloody, But still,
Beetlegeist. Still not saying it right.
So again, I took, Gremlins 2.
So what is it about Gremlins 2 that you picked instead of Gremlins 1? I'm kind of curious.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy Gremlins 2.
Okay.
For the same fact, I'm more of a Monty Python type of guy, and I enjoyed the horror film because
the dry humor kind of thing. Okay.
The dry humor, the merchandising, the fun, the silliness of it. I enjoy that.
The first one would technically be considered both a Christmas movie and a horror movie in my mind. And so the Gremlins concept still has never made sense to me. Even as a kid, I was like, okay,
Depends on your time zone.
Don't feed them after midnight. What? So
don't think too much.
At what point does that change? Like noon the next day? Like where's the cutoff here? Like, and midnight here is different than midnight somewhere else. So like, where's the? I don't know, it never made sense.
That was our conspiracy theory episode. Let's go into another episode.
We'll dive into that in the next.
We'll dive into that one in another episode.
Yeah, we got quite a few good ones out of that are still coming too. I'm excited to continue that. And then Addams Family.
I think that's, again, it's comedy. It was gory. I think if you're a little kid, you can get scared of it really easy. Again, gore-ish, gothic. Definitely, it makes fun of even the original TV show. It made fun of the horror genre. But again, just something I enjoyed, and the MC Hammer theme of it.
Yeah. All righty.
Did you know
I actually
that
just saw the new animated one. That was the one that Lily picked to watch for our family movie night this past Friday. It was good. It was actually pretty good. I liked it. It was good.
You know, the guy that played Gomez passed away.
Did he really? I did not know that.
Yeah.
He died a while ago.
Yeah, a while ago. I didn't even know.
Wow.
Yeah. His last movie was Street Fighter when he played Bison.
Did he play Bison in the Street Fighter
Bison
movie?
in Street movie? Yeah. That was
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah.
Now I need to go watch
live
that
action
movie.
one.
The live action one with Jean-Claude Van Damme. Yeah.
Yeah.
Raul Julia's last movie was.
There's a conversation right there. Video game movies.
Oh,
that's a conversation to have right there. I would love to just tear those to shreds because there's some pretty so bad it's good movies in that genre. Alrighty. Joe, do you mind if we save you for last?
Yeah.
Is that all right? Okay.
Yeah.
So here's my list. If I can zoom out here, I don't know. My mind's so much bigger than the rest of y'all's. There we go. There we go. That's what I'm talking about. Why is it? Let's see. My honorable mention, Alberto hopefully will appreciate, was Cabin in the Woods. We already talked about it.
Stamp of approval.
I want 150. There we go. Yeah, like we already talked about Cabin in the Woods. I love movies that have a lot more depth to them than what there is originally on the surface. The ending of this movie, when I first saw it, I actually really hated it. I was like, that's dumb. Why would you end a movie like that with, and I'm not going to spoil it, but then I started talking with some people about it, and I started reading a little bit more about it and some of the layers of commentary to it, and realizing that let's just say the people that are being appeased within the movie that cause it to end the way that it does are actually a metaphor for you as an audience member and a fan of horror movies. And it was like, oh snap, that's a much deeper level of a movie than I thought it was. So the reason why I put it in my honorable mentions instead of like the top 5 is because I don't know that the core of this movie is about just scaring you. I think it's got a lot of stuff to say while it's doing that, but there's more to it than that. And there's aspects of it. A good portion of the movie, a good percentage, is not about scaring you at all. It's actually just behind the scenes commentary stuff, and it feels very different than a usual horror movie. So
just going back to your original definition, it's the director's, scriptwriter's intention to cause fear. That's why it's, and Joe, your definition was it invokes fear. Just looking at those are two very different, any movie can invoke fear. But
like, is it the goal of the movie to invoke fear?
The goal of the movie to invoke fear. I think that's what you're
right.
And the Cabin in the Woods, this theme is, it kind of goes both ways. It might make you scared, but sometimes you don't think its intention was to essentially do that.
Right. Mm-hmm. And it's just a lot of fun if you're a horror movie fan to see, and not just of movies, but also video games and comic books and TV shows. Like there's a lot of really fun little winks and nods and just some fun Easter eggs to hunt for in that movie too, which is a lot of fun. So number 5, the original Saw movie, the very first one. Have any of you seen this movie?
Yes.
Yeah, a long time ago, but I haven't seen it.
Long time ago. This movie, again, this is not in any way, me picking these movies does not in any way mean I am a fan of the entirety of the franchise or any of the sequels that came after any of these. Just to clarify, the rest of the Saw franchise, I think it got pretty ridiculous. And I followed it when it was coming out because the story I thought was like, well, I kind of want to see how it ends. And they kept milking it. And I'm like, well, I guess I'll go see the other one. The first one, though, still to this day, I feel like it was so low budget. The majority of the movie was shot on like one set. Mm-hmm. And the twist at the end of this movie, I still didn't see it coming, even after someone at my work at the time was like, no, seriously, you need to watch this because, and they lay out basically what the twist is. And I still didn't get it. I'm like, I don't get it. What? Like there's a dead guy on the ground and there's locked in this box with him. And like, what? They're like, no, you need to just see it. And I'm like, okay. And it was one of those movies where it stuck with you at the end. You're like, wait a minute. Now I need to watch this movie again because that revelation gives a whole new context to the entire movie and what they were able to do, the concept of it with such a low budget. I was very impressed with. Mm-hmm. And it definitely sparked an entire genre of movies that just went way too off the rails. But this one I thought was good. So number 4, the original Alien, Ridley Scott. Bobby, I totally agree with you. This is absolutely a horror movie. It's a sci-fi movie, but it's definitely a horror movie.
Again, one of those dual.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Horror can hit like multiple, marry it with other genres. But the horror component to it is still significant in my mind.
I remember watching it as a kid and going to bed at night and thinking it's going to come out from underneath.
Seriously,
and drop
under the bed or crawl out into the window or something. And I was fascinated with the alien creature when I was growing through like junior high. It was ridiculous.
Were you a fan of Prometheus?
I loved Prometheus. A lot of Alien fans hated it. I went in knowing full well it wasn't going to be an Alien movie, and so I kind of took it for what it was. That's definitely more sci-fi than like horror. I wouldn't put that in the same category necessarily as what Alien is.
Do you think the newer
or Aliens either, for that matter?
The newer ones, they try to go more of that summer blockbuster action flick, and they had a bad guy in it. It just happened to be an alien.
The last one, Alien Covenant, I would definitely say fell into that category. Prometheus, that movie has so many other layers to it, and Ridley Scott is trying to say so much in that movie about the relationship between science and religion and seeking out our origins and the mystery of creating life and like where life originated. And there's some really, really interesting themes to explore in that movie that make it substantially more than just a horror movie. Alien, on the other hand, is just a creepy ass movie.
I think that goal terrifying. Was
very scary.
Dan, just looking at your whole theme, I see Saw, Alien, and just going into the other ones, yours it's simple, and I think the problem with the sequels, they tend to get more complicated.
Yeah, totally, Bobby.
I think that's your general theme. You do totally like layers,
but very good Very good eye.
So
yeah, and you'll also recognize that they are all, for the most part, the original in what became, with the exception of Cabin in the Woods, all of the other movies in my list are the original in what became a franchise, or at least had a sequel of at least one, if not multiple sequels. So
or prequels.
Right.
Or prequels.
Right. So number 3 for me, this is just, it's such a classic. And to this day, it's maybe not as scary, quote unquote, as some people might think it is. Although I personally still find it to be horrifying because I find it to be very believable to some degree. Psycho, Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho. Like that movie has so many just layers of subverting expectation. Again, it goes back to that. I love movies that do that. Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho, the concept of the main star dying within the first 20 minutes of the movie, unheard of. Like, even to this day, like who in their right mind would be a huge star and agree to a movie where you, as the primary draw, like, this is your movie, and they die like almost right away at the beginning of the movie. Where's this movie going after that? Like, it was such a twist.
I would say an artist would do that. He read the script. Yeah. Read the script and said, I love it.
Yeah.
It's different.
Right. That's exactly right.
Brad Pitt did that.
What's up, Austin?
Brad Pitt did that in Deadpool 2.
Brad Pitt, yes, but you didn't realize it was Brad Pitt. But that's okay. So but that's different. See, here's the deal, Bobby. That's different. That's radically different than what Alfred Hitchcock did with Psycho, because having the cameo of some big names in there and going, hey, Brad Pitt's going to show up in Deadpool. Oh, cool. Is it Deadpool's face on? Is it Brad Pitt's face on the front of the poster and it's being marketed as a Brad Pitt movie? No. Psycho, that's how it was marketed. Like, this is her movie. It is her on the front cover. Everybody loves her as a star. It is her movie. And there were there were signs posted, and there was marketing that Alfred Hitchcock put out at the theaters and elsewhere that was telling everyone who saw the movie, do not tell anyone about this movie after you see it. Like, don't tell people about it. Because
the first one that said don't do spoilers.
First one that was like, yeah, really. The first one that was like, hey, don't give away spoilers, right? And that was a big deal, because to have the big star of a movie literally be in it for only the first third of the film was absurd. Like, who would market a movie like that? Yeah. So, and ironically, if you want to watch an interesting movie about the making of that movie, there is a movie about Alfred Hitchcock that has who am I thinking of? Anthony Hopkins, Sir Anthony Hopkins, playing Alfred Hitchcock, I think. About the whole creation of this movie. So definitely built the foundation of the like psychological murder mystery horror thing. And then the twist at the end of who the real killer actually is and who his mom is.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Have any of you seen Psycho? Bobby, have you seen Psycho? Have you seen Psycho?
Not like for the long.
Besides me, you mean? Because
Yeah.
obviously I've seen it.
Yeah, not for the longest time. Yeah. So it's not like one thing I see. It's like something I saw once and never again.
Alberto, please tell me you've seen Psycho.
Would I get you still as mad if I told you I only saw the remake? Is that okay?
Alberto, what?
Is that
What about the TV show?
No, that doesn't count.
I heard it was a pretty faithful, like, shot for shot remake, though. I mean, granted, Vince Vaughn there, existing.
If you're gonna do a remake, don't do a poor imitation shot for shot. Don't take the other movie and just use that as a storyboard. That's a terrible idea. That goes into our conversation that we can have in another episode about remakes. But
I've never seen.
You've never seen this movie?
No,
Joe, are you?
What if he just logs off and he just?
I'm about to just end the stream right now. Like, why would we even have a conversation about horror movies if you've never seen like the godfather of all horror movies, the movie Psycho? That is crazy. Wow. Okay, y'all better be taking notes. Put these on your list. Psycho. Gotta watch Psycho.
And Birdemic. Watch Birdemic.
Okay, so that brings me to number 2. Good Lord, you all better have seen this movie. Jaws.
I've seen that movie. I watched it with my 4-year-old daughter, and she loves sharks, right?
Yeah. You watched Jaws with your daughter when she was 4?
With Eden, right? With Eden.
Okay.
So we're watching this.
Yeah.
And this girl could say like 20 dinosaurs before she could say her colors. So she could identify them. And so
that's awesome.
And the girl, in a very open scene when she gets undressed and goes into the water, she's like, oh man, that's a bad idea. Sharks hunt at dark. Sharks hunt at dark.
Yes.
And when she got attacked, she's like, I knew it.
I knew it.
And so the second scene is when that boy gets eaten on the yellow raft.
On the raft. Yeah.
Yeah. And she was like, oh man, you're too far away from your mommy. Oh man. She gets eaten. Yes. She's like, I can't do it. I can't. I said, are you scared? And she's like, no, they're just making bad decisions. I just can't do it.
They're just making bad decisions. Every horror movie ever is just a string of people making bad decisions. That is so good. That's hilarious, Joe. I like. You guys have all seen Jaws. Bobby, you've seen Jaws, right?
Long time ago.
Alberto.
Yeah. No, I've seen Jaws.
I was holding my breath there for a second.
I've seen Jaws. And unfortunately, was it Jaws 3D, the one where it was like some slow motion scene of a shark bursting through like some underground glass, and the glass was really poorly animated to fly at you?
That's Jaws.
Oh, that was 3D. That was Jaws 3D.
That was rough. That was a rough one.
Yeah. That was
I'd rather see Piranha again.
We're not talking about the sequels, dude. We're talking about the original.
You're like, those don't exist.
And the thing I love about this movie is how it is a great example of how talented filmmakers use all of the tools at their disposal to produce or invoke that emotion within person in the audience without actually showing a whole lot. Perfect example of it. Now they had to do it because the shark, aka Bruce, was apparently just giving him all kinds of hard time. But
the shark's name was Bruce?
Yep, the shark's name is Bruce. You didn't know that? The shark's name is Bruce.
I did not. Did you guys?
Hence the reason why the shark in Finding Nemo was, hello, my name is Bruce. Like they were doing that as a wink and a nod to
that's funny.
To
today,
Jaws.
Today I learned.
But out of that necessity came creativity, which is where the barrels and all of that sort of stuff came from. And the motion picture score in this is like John Williams at his finest in being able to use the simplicity of a musical score to convey and mess with you as a member of the audience. It's like seriously messing with you. Like you hear that and you think there's a shark, and he uses that throughout the whole movie to just like invoke that tension in moments where it doesn't need to be there. Like it's so, watch that movie and pay attention to the soundtrack and how it's used and how it sets you up for being scared when you don't have to be. He's brilliant at doing that.
Sherry still cannot hear that theme song, without it causing anxiety.
Really?
Yeah.
I love that theme song. And this movie has one of my favorite one-liners in any movie where he goes, "You're going to need a bigger boat." Like, I love that movie.
That line.
Love that line. You're going to need a bigger boat. You're going to need a bigger boat, right? Yeah. Love it. And then finally, my number one. I know Alberto has seen this one because you watched it with me. You and your girlfriend came over. We're like, we need to watch a scary movie. Which one should we watch? Because my gigantic wall of movies here. And I'm like, if you haven't seen this movie, like, you have to see it.
I was like half considering putting this one too. This one, because in the same vein of Evil Dead 2, like the amount of practical effects, but this one to a much greater degree.
The Thing.
Yeah, The Thing.
Absolutely fantastic.
Did you watch the remake?
I did. I have both. I do have both. I think they're both wonderful examples of the product of the era that they were made in. Okay. One stands up better than the other.
You told me that the sequel is like technically a prequel.
It's a prequel. Like, the crazy thing about this original movie that John Carpenter made was they're coming in on this just like crazy situation, not knowing exactly what happened beforehand. And they're running into all of these like just weird, unexplainable things that exist on this like research base up in the Arctic, like axe stuck in the wall, bunch of blood on the wall, some really deformed weird dude frozen in a chair somewhere, like just really weird stuff, and you never know exactly what happened. Well, the sequel, which technically is the prequel, they actually went through really painstaking detail and trying to recreate a story that fits where all of those things actually happened. And it's not terrible. I wouldn't say it's terrible. It's definitely not as good as the original, but it's still good. And I love how they were respectful of the content in the original enough to pay attention to where things are supposed to be and try and explain what happened before the original movie. So, but John Carpenter's Thing is fantastic. Have any of you, like Alberto saw it, Bobby, Joe, have you seen the original?
Yeah.
You did. Bobby, you haven't seen it?
Neither one.
Okay. Thing that I loved most about this movie is, as much as it is a really, really good creature monster movie, and the special effects still hold up today, even though they're practical effects, and it's like groundbreaking in a lot of ways, and impacted a lot of filmmakers in practical effects. A lot of people throughout history have cited this movie as a big influence in them getting into filmmaking. But for me, I love how this movie actually points out how the paranoia that exists within humanity is really the most frightening component of what's going on in this film. It's not the alien, it's not the creature, it's not the thing. It's the most dangerous and terrifying component to this, really, at the end of the day, is how absolutely paranoid and desperate people get, and the stuff that they're willing to do when they become so fearful for their own life and what they're willing to do in order to try and preserve their own survival. Like, people start turning on each other. It gets nuts. It gets crazy in the midst of, you don't know who you can trust and who is or isn't. Like, it gets crazy. And that component to it is the most believable part. The alien part, yeah, sure, whatever. Really good practical effects, but the believable component to it for me is how people go crazy and psycho on each other when they can't be sure of whether or not they can trust each other. A lot of really good performances playing off of that theme too. So, yeah. So that's my number one. It's
a good list.
Yeah. Joe.
All right.
Wrapping up with yours.
Okay.
This is an interesting list.
It is.
You changed the honorable mention.
I did.
I saw that. You changed the honorable mention. Excellent choice, by the way.
It is. I actually bought it the other day and had Sherry watch it with me, and she loved it.
Yeah?
Have you guys seen The Crazies?
I feel like I have, but I'm thinking of I'm thinking of the Strangers.
I almost
That is
watched
very
The
different.
Strangers too. I heard that was terrifying.
That one creeped you out when it first came out, for sure. I think looking back, not as scary now that we have Ring app and everything, and you have so many cameras. But yeah, no, for sure.
So the premise of The Crazies is that the horror portion of it is bioweapons and what our government would do to protect itself. So, yeah, that's why it made into a horror, because the bioweapons turn people into like
The Crazies.
crazies, like I Am Legend crazies, where they become violent and they hurt the ones that they love the most. And it's from a bioweapon, and how the U.S. government comes in and tries to deal with it, and ends up killing everyone to try to contain the virus.
Yeah, it's pretty, crazy.
Yeah.
Not something
Pretty
we need
nuts.
in this day and age with the level of trust we have.
Yeah, right? Imagine that. Oh, man. But you replaced that with, what was the other one that was in there?
Critters.
Critters. Solid creature movie from the 80s.
Yeah. So, and moving on to It. Now, I chose It for a reason.
The original one.
The original one, because this
Alberto
is
had the remake. You're picking the original. Why did you go with the original instead of the remake?
I went with the original because my great parents and their wisdom let me watch this movie when I was like 7. And so
I had to sneak in and watch it in my living room while my mom was asleep. But your parents just straight up said, "No, go ahead."
here's you some nightmares for life.
Yeah.
Boom.
You turned out to be a fine individual.
So I remember watching this and
Sucker punch a clown every time we see them.
yeah, it gave me issues with clowns.
For real.
For real. You ask my wife. She see a clown? I'm like, no thanks, man. When clowns started showing up back in a couple years ago, just randomly, I was like, I would shoot one of them.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. People just randomly showing up in the middle of nowhere in a creepy clown mask for no reason. It's just walking out of a cornfield in a clown mask.
Yeah, like why? But the
Oh man,
it's the movie itself it made the list because it evoked so much fear in my life, and about the little boy getting his arm ripped off and dragged down to the sewers.
Yeah.
I was thankful, but I had a recurring nightmare that this clown would be outside my window, burnt to a crisp, like over and over again. And so,
Really?
yes, like I said, nightmares for life.
There
It's
you go.
and yeah. Now, third is Pumpkinhead.
Oh, I was shocked to see this on anyone's list. I didn't think anybody knew about this movie.
Pumpkinhead.
Bobby, are you aware of what Pumpkinhead is?
No, I'll be honest with you. The only one I can see, I know number 3 because it's talked in a lot of top movie circles, but heard of it but never seen it.
Okay. Alberto, have you ever heard of Pumpkinhead?
I think I've heard of it, but I'm also thinking of Sleepy Hollow at the same time, though.
Yeah, definitely not Sleepy Hollow.
Nope.
Nothing like Sleepy Hollow.
Pumpkinhead is made in 1981, and this movie, once again, my parents rented this movie. It's like, hey, children, gather around and watch this.
It's a Halloween movie.
But around, children, come watch the creepy Pumpkin Man. Yeah.
The premise is this father has a son accidentally killed, and he takes the body to a witch in the woods, and a vengeful demon comes up to exact revenge for the boy. And Yeah, it was terrifying. And what really stuck out with me is we watched this movie, and I grew up in the sticks of Louisiana. And
always see that happen.
when we took our trash, we had to drive a mile up the road to throw into a dumpster. So we watched this movie, right? And my dad's like, "Hey, let's go take out the trash." And drove a mile up in the dark. It's like 11:30 at night. We get out, throw the trash off.
You were getting set up, weren't you?
My father drove off.
No.
After watching this movie. I'm
what?
I'm like 9.
No.
I'm like 9.
Made you walk all the way back
in the dark. And in like middle of Louisiana woods. Like terrified.
Oh, of course.
Straight up terrified.
Lord.
So
right after watching Pumpkinhead?
Right after.
Oh man. Yeah, I can understand why that would be.
What happened to your dad when your mom found out he left you?
My mom cackled.
She was laughing.
My mom was not that type of mom.
Fair enough.
All right, moving on to number 3.
Number 3.
American Werewolf in London. So I love werewolf movies. Absolutely love them. I've seen dumb ones, great ones. Just all the werewolf movies I can get a hold of, I try to watch.
Teen Wolf 1 or Teen Wolf 2?
Teen Wolf 1. So we with American Werewolf, I've always heard the prosthetics of this movie was phenomenal, and it really every werewolf movie after this movie tried basis the way they did their graphics or prosthetics off this movie. And so I didn't watch this movie until about 3 years ago, and it was on sale at Best Buy for $5 Blu-ray, so I bought it and absolutely loved it. It was great. Have you guys seen American Werewolf in London?
I have not seen any of the Werewolf in London whatevers.
And then
because I know there were there was like American Werewolf in London. There was a
remake, American Werewolf in Paris, right?
In Paris. I felt like there were a few kind of along. I haven't seen any of them though.
All right. The Howling. Have you guys ever heard of The Howling?
I have heard of this one. I have not seen this one yet. And I understand it's a classic for werewolf stuff.
It is. It's what started my love for werewolf movies. Once again, my parents rented it, and I was a young kid, and we watched it. And it was, to me, it was phenomenal. It's a great werewolf movie. Top notch. They don't make werewolf horror movies like this anymore. So yeah, made you afraid to go outside at dark in the middle of Louisiana,
or get left out there when you're going out to take the trash out,
or have trust issues with your father.
Apparently. So
moving on to my number 1, The Conjuring. So I watched this one a couple years ago too. A buddy love scary movies. What's up, man? I don't know who you are. I can't see your name.
Facebook dealio. Yeah, we're looking at the comments. Yeah.
So I watched this with a friend because this guy's wife did not want to watch scary movies with him. It's like, yeah, come over, I'll watch it with you. So we watched it, and it was legit scary. And then he went home, and I was like, I stayed up till like 4:00 in the morning with my lights on. I'm not gonna lie, I was just like, I was dating my wife. I was like, this is a bad decision. Like, I would never watch that movie again.
It was so creepy. You'd never watch it again.
No,
really.
That's why it's my.
That's movie. What we're looking at right there. That's what I guess that's what we're talking about. That's a scary movie. Then
I was that way with Candyman. That movie.
Candyman.
I was Dan. Let me tell you, I was terrified of my reflection for weeks of that one. I watched it as a kid. It was one of the free movies on TV, and I was watching it, and
Candyman.
I should have never watched it. And then, like, at first, you say his name into the mirror. And he's
Don't say it.
Get you.
Don't say it.
But then I started overthinking it, and I'm like, wait, what about the reflection of my face off of the plastic wrapping of toys at the store?
Ooh.
What about my reflection off
either.
of glass from my
Getcha.
cup of milk? And before you know it, I just couldn't look up anymore, and I stopped doing my hair. I stopped looking
You
at
stopped
myself.
doing your hair.
I stopped. I
my
stopped doing
God.
everything. Like, I started brushing my teeth, looking down constantly. It was the absolute worst nightmare of all time. And it got to the point where, like, I remember, like, I had to go to this Catholic church. I was a kid, and I went to the Catholic church, and I told him everything. I was like, "Hey, Father, I can't sleep," and then I told him about the movie, and he just prayed over me. And right after the movie, I was like, "Mama, I'm actually really hungry. I have an appetite for one." So we go to Wendy's, and I get the kids meal that comes with a toy from the movie Zoom with Tim Allen. So, so that was a long-winded way of saying I get how you feel, Joe.
So is there any movies that you absolutely haven't been able to make it through like that, though? Where it was like, this is sticking with me. I've never watched it again because it was so.
One movie I had to try twice to watch, and since we're all males here talking, maybe you guys can for sure end up feeling for this. Have you ever heard or have you ever seen, and I hope you haven't seen it, but have you heard of the movie called Teeth?
Teeth? Yes.
Oh, you knew
Yes.
it.
I know Teeth.
Oh man, that movie!
No,
I
couldn't watch that movie.
First time I had to pause it. I was like, okay, my stomach hurts because the whole time
saw the trailer and was like, nope, definitely not watching that movie.
It's a tough one to watch, and when you're a male, it's even harder to watch because there's even a part, and this isn't a spoiler. It's a rated R movie. It's about a vagina that has teeth and it's ripping off of wieners. There's a wiener on the floor covered in blood.
Is the most point blank, terrifying explanation I have ever heard of that movie.
Oh, it was terrifying. There was a weenie covered in blood right there. Rated R. Oh, I paused right there at like the lake scene. I paused. My stomach hurt. I was like, I'm gonna throw up. I can't.
Well, that's hilarious. But yeah, the trailer was like, I have no interest in watching that movie.
No, that was a tough one.
Same thing with
What's the name of the movie where some scientist
I was just gonna say
the mouth of the human centipede?
No way am I ever watching those movies. I got zero interest in watching them. That's the concept of that alone is just like, no thanks. Like, no, I'm not interested. No, thank you. That's not scary. That's just gross. I'm not interested in that.
But it does. The intention of the director is to cause fear.
Oh, I definitely say it's a horror movie for sure.
Yeah.
Not one I'm interested in watching. No, thank you. Like, no, thank you.
How upset would you be if I told you that I had a group of friends that thought it'd be a good idea to watch Human Centipede 2 as a two?
Did you watch it?
Made another one of those movies?
The first one, the second one makes number one look like a PG, like Gremlins 2 kind of like just like, oh, this is nice. You can watch it with the kids. Like, it honestly makes it feel like that. Oh,
that is
yeah. Number 2 is just like they knew what grossed you out, and they're like, oh, if there's a dial, we broke it.
Yeah, I got no interest in watching that.
Except we broke that back when we wrote this script, so it's okay.
Another movie that it's a series that I've never watched, and the big reason why is because the trailer itself, when I was a teenager with raging hormones, gave me nightmares. Like when I was, like 12, 13, 14. The Species movies. Did you ever see any of the Species movies?
Yes.
Oh, Species.
You know what I'm talking about?
With raging hormones, yes, I did.
Yes,
Dude.
yes. I don't think you grew up as a '90s child, as a child who was born in '80 and not see that movie as a teenager.
Right. So that trailer came on late at night. First time I saw the trailer for that was when I was staying with my grandparents. My grandmother was out of town, and she was visiting like vacation or whatever with my aunt and uncle, and they were like, well, grandfather doesn't want to fly, so hang out with grandpa for the weekend. So I spent like 4 days with my grandfather, and he fed me Subway and TV dinners, and I got to sit in front and watch TV as late as I wanted to, like the whole weekend, basically, like hanging out with grandpa. TV in the guest room. So I'm up late watching it, and this trailer kept coming on over and over and over, and it terrified me because I'm like, there's this extremely hot chick and she's turning into an alien that's killing people. And then I'm like terrified of how many attractive hot women have I been like who are actually going to just eat me alive. As a kid, it freaked me out.
I remember watching it. I thought to myself, there's worse ways to die.
I think
there's worse ways to die. Oh man!
I would like to say she ended up going with the scientist, and I'm like, go one for the nerds.
Okay, way to go for the nerds. To this day, still never seen it. Any of them. I guess there's like a bunch of them now. I have no interest in watching them now, just because it just doesn't look like a good movie in my mind. But when I was a kid, it freaked me out for sure. So, Bobby, anything for you? Anything that you to this day still haven't seen or you haven't been able to make it through?
You could probably name a movie, and I can tell you, yes, I haven't been able to fully get through it. And, I've seen it in pieces, like the Freddy Krueger movies and the Jason movies. Like seen them in pieces. I enjoy what they are, what they do, but I've never seen a full Jason movie.
Okay, all right. Yeah, all the slasher movies and stuff, I feel like they're very classic, but
boring.
They're all the same. They're all the exact same.
Yeah.
So
very boring. I know
agree.
I know what you did last summer is boring.
Right? And that's where so Scream, like the Scream franchise, are they horror movies or are they comedies, or like what do you guys think about those?
It's a slasher movie. It's a comment on all the other horror movies. I mean, it's a horror movie, but it's a commentary on horror movies.
Yeah, I was gonna definitely call it horror. I mean, little kid me was scared to death, but then again, I was scared of everything. So
fair enough.
That was very much.
At least your parents weren't dropping you off in the middle of the night and saying,
"Oh, no,
the end of the street."
There's a mile up the road,
right? Man. So that's all of our lists. We'll have to wait for Christian for the next one. Do we have a pointless debate for this week? I think Christian was the one who had. Did he have the topic?
Yeah, I don't have a debate.
No, he didn't have the topic, did he?
Let's go ahead and call it a night.
Yeah, I think this was a good debate to begin with. We talked about horror movies versus Halloween movies the whole night. So this was a debate in itself.
Next week, I think we will dive into discussing video games.
Light. Okay.
With a horror, are we going with the Halloween
horror kind of theme? Survival horror, or like just kind of like what we did tonight. What video games do you not play in the dark, kind of a thing?
Viva Pinata.
Sonic the Hedgehog.
Totally Sonic the Hedgehog. No, there is some interesting platformers out there that I wouldn't still even play in the dark.
Really?
Yeah. Some interesting choices out there.
Ghostbuster video games. Yes.
Which one? The Nintendo version was so hard to play through.
Yeah, that was
Ghostbuster.
The original NES. Version.
Yeah.
So hard to get through.
And we can maybe open it up a little bit for next week's discussion. It doesn't have to be scary movies, but in keeping with the Halloween-esque theme.
Yeah.
It could just be fun stuff that deals with spooky stuff.
And I'd love to keep talking about the movies too, because like the idea, because like for example, like when Christians hear I have another person in their 20s, and like Bob was saying that, you know, being born in the 80s and then growing up in the 90s, where we were born in the 90s, growing up in the 2000s. So
Yeah.
our ideas of classics really, I feel like, are a lot different than like the horror movie classics and from your generation.
You're calling
as
us
well.
old?
What are you
No.
saying there, Alberto?
Are we
Come on now.
classic?
I'm calling you wise.
I realized this when Al was like, I was 2, and I saw the Scream mask, and I was like, 2.
Yeah.
What?
I know. Well, that's what, yeah. And then like every time that you guys were commenting on Bobby's list, I'm just thinking, I was a child watching those things, so yes, I was scared of those things.
Right.
Couldn't help it.
Of course, you're going to be scared of when you're a kid. Yeah. So video games. I mean, and that can be a whole host of stuff, whether it's survival horror stuff or whether it's, I mean, Nazi zombies or, you know, ghouls and ghosts, or I mean, there's a whole array of
from
stuff.
Facebook. They're saying Halloween or scary based games like zombies or fantasy games,
all that sort of stuff. And we can debate whether or not we think it fits.
Speaking of zombie games, I bought Days Gone.
That, Joe, I feel like that's a game that they wrote thinking, you know what, Joe's gonna like this game one day when he plays it. That's just a game for you. It is.
I'm enjoying it.
That's good.
I like the actor who plays the guy, Sam Whitner or wherever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
that's a good
no
one.
one said Dawn of the Dead.
Dawn of the Dead was definitely on my honorable mentions category, but I had to pick one. Dawn of the Dead, specifically Zack Snyder's version of Dawn of the Dead. I love the original one with Cesar Romero, but I love Zack Snyder, obviously. And that was
Dawn of the Dead was good, yeah.
That opening scene.
Yeah.
That little girl, right?
Dude, yeah. Like movies. Okay, so that's one thing in the horror movie genre that I've always makes me queasy and creepy is when it's a kid.
Days Gone has zombie children. I'm
That's
like,
what I'm saying, dude. Like, I don't know about that, Joe.
Joe's like,
Dude,
don't mind
you got
if
a
I
little
do.
bit of pent up parental aggression out on the zombie kids or something, or whatever.
come here, you little shit.
Yeah. No, but like the creepy kid, right? Or Dead Island, the trailer that came out for Dead Island. That
oh yeah, the first one too.
Fantastic, blew my mind how creepy that was with the kid, right? Or the creepiest part of The Shining, definitely the kids, like those two little girls and the wave of blood coming down the hallway.
I was going to say The Shining.
Right, exactly. So
The Shining,
creepy. Omen, kid who's like the Antichrist, yeah, creepy. The what else am I thinking of? Feel free to drop a comment in the. I'm trying to think of what was the one I'm thinking of. Oh, what was the name of that movie?
I wasn't thinking of the what was it? The Ring.
Silent Hill. That's what I'm thinking of. Ooh. Silent Hill, the original Silent Hill movie. Now, if you love the games, yes, movies were not exactly blow your mind amazing, but the girl in the Sleepy Hollow movie, like creepy.
Silent Hill
creepy
movie.
Silent Hill. Yeah.
You said Sleepy Hollow.
Silent Hill.
I know.
Did I say Sleepy Hollow?
You said Sleepy Hollow.
Yeah.
I was just clarifying.
Did I say Sleepy Hollow? I meant Silent Hill. Sleepy Hollow.
He's got Johnny Depp on his mind.
It's too late. It's too late.
I would let my child.
Creepy, that was a good one too.
To answer Facebook, I wouldn't let my child watch a movie that he or she played in. I don't have any sons.
that you know of.
I know of.
So we'll talk about that, and then I think after that, well, don't hold me to it, but I think the week after that, maybe we'll talk just about
Ghost,
just
Supernatural,
just creepy stuff in general. Like ghost, cryptozoology. Do we believe any of this stuff? Like Bigfoot?
Why does candy corn exist?
Right. Just scary stuff. Right.
Candy corn is good. and I will die on that hill.
Oh,
Dude,
Joe.
candy corn is disgusting. I am convinced of the fact that there is like they made a gigantic, monstrous amount of candy corn like 40 years ago, and they've just been recycling the same stuff that gets left over every year. Like the stuff never ages ever. You're eating candy corn from like 50 years ago, and it doesn't make any difference.
It's good post-apocalyptic food to have.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
I guess so.
Forget Twinkies.
So this has been a fun conversation, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks so much. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Feel free to chime in again in the comments. Let us know what your top 5 scary movies, Halloween movies, horror movies are. What do you think a horror movie is? And then also leave comments on what you think would make for a good conversation moving forward with the rest of this spooky month that we got coming up ahead. So,
all right.
Thanks so much, everybody.
Alrighty, fellas. Have a good night.
Yeah, have a good night.